Hey there, lovely people. Welcome back to another Writing Tip Tuesday. I'm Sammi, and I'm a writer who wants to help other writers become better writers. So this week I want to talk to you about one of the age-old things that everybody who wants to write has always heard, but not everyone really knows what it means. Want versus need. What does that mean? It's a lot different than our show don't tell advice because these are very much interconnected. You need to know both of them to be able to answer either question. It's one question altogether. It's not do this, not that. Want versus need comes from developing your character's internal conflict. This is something that every character needs if they're going to go through some character development. If the point of the story is just for them to solve their external conflict and continue on, and maybe their internal conflict will come on later in the series, or so on, maybe you don't need this very much. Maybe their want and their needs are the same thing because it's just focused on that external conflict, but most of the time you want both. You want both an internal conflict and an external conflict. So let's discuss what an internal conflict is. Basically, an internal conflict is the struggles that your character has based on their perception of themselves and the world. An internal conflict will really make your character feel more real to the reader because they're having a real person problem, and it's not just that big deal that is their external conflict. Internal conflict leads to the character arc. It leads to any kind of change that your character goes through. When your character starts off one way and then they end totally different in some aspect of themselves, that change that they go through is their character arc. So your character's internal conflict is going to really relate to what their perception of themselves is. So a lot of times this comes from a past trauma or some sort of personality flaw that your character has that they are learning to overcome. Want and need both address whatever that trauma or flaw is in your character. The way that it works is that want is entirely your character's perception. So your character's want is what they think will solve their problem. So a really great example that I saw while I was doing some research was Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Katara wants to enact revenge on the man who killed her mother. That's what she thinks will solve the pain of her mother dying for her in her place. So she thinks that enacting revenge, that's what she wants to do, will solve this problem, will heal the pain. The want is always something that is superficial and external, something that does not relate to the character growing necessarily, but they think that it does. It's the kind of thing that will affect them in a way that's not as impactful as them discovering their need would be. The character's need is a lesson that they need to learn to be able to develop and grow. This is always something that is more internal. It's something they have to discover to be able to overcome the flaw or trauma that they have at the beginning of the story. To go back to the example for Katara, what she needs is to discover that she values her moral compass, where she wants to stay in line with who she is more than she wants to enact revenge. She needs to be her own person to feel like she is confident in who she is, because her being the best person that she is going to make her mother's sacrifice more beneficial and less painful for her to know that she's alive because her mother isn't. So we go from having the trauma, my mom died for me, to my mom died for me, so I am going to be a good person, rather than my mom died for me, so I'm going to kill the guy who killed her. It's so different, but they are on the same path. They're still trying to feel better about the situation, but one will actually work and the other will not. For the most engaging character, you want them to have internal conflict. You want them to be fighting for something that they know that they need to change. A lot of the times, this will come from something that is traumatic. It doesn't have to be traumatic. It can be a personality trait. It can be something that they just don't necessarily like about themselves. It can be something so simple. I'm going to use my hair. So if I'm your character and my internal trauma, my flaw is that people bully me for having curly hair. So what I want is to straighten my hair. I want to get a relaxer and have my hair straight all the time, that I don't have to worry about it. That's what I think I want. What I need is to become confident in myself and not let bullies determine how I perceive myself. So if I go through all of my strife and I have that development where I see that I am my own person, I become a stronger character because I chose to keep my hair curly. I'm able to have the strength to take down the bullies as a character, and that can become something that's super interesting just because of that internal conflict. And you can have a story that's entirely based off of internal conflict. It's not a requirement to have your story be based off of external problems that are out of reach, that are insane, or anything like that. I think a good example of that would be Tessa and Weston, The Best Christmas Ever. That book, I got to read the advanced release copy. It comes from a story that has a major external conflict. It's the sequel to that story. And then it's got internal conflict, smaller conflicts, and it's just as engaging. So take a look at your characters. How many of them are getting what they want? And how many of them do you know what they need? Take a minute, look at all of your characters, all of your main characters, go through what do each of these characters want? What do they actually need? And then take a look at whatever you've got so far, any draft, any outlines, and see how that can affect your story. You may be surprised, and knowing the difference can be super helpful in developing that story. Hopefully that clarified a little bit on what want versus need really means, and you now feel like you learned something. If you learned something from me, please leave a like. I would really appreciate it, and it would help me out and make YouTube think that more people may learn something from my videos, and I can get out there to more people. Let me know in the comments what your characters' wants and needs are. I'm very interested. You don't have to give me any details about them. Just tell me my character wants, but they need in the comments. I'd love to have a little chat with you guys. I'd love to see what you guys are working on. It's really great to have a community of writers, and I want to build that here. If you like this video, please subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss another upload. I will be back on Saturday with another Story Study Saturday, and then again, of course, on Tuesday with more writing tips.